Welcome to Money Moves, brought to you by 274 Investment Managers. And this provides us an opportunity for us to learn about our personal money management. And tonight, we're going to focus on managing expenses as well as controlling debt. And who else to have as a guest than Kristia van Heerden, who's the CEO of justonelap.com. It's spelled justonelap.com. She's a recovered debt junkie, and she'll talk to us from a first-hand experience. And
Yes,
Kristia,
well,
pleasure to have you with us.
thank you for having me.
I don't feel right saying somebody is a recovered junkie, and in this instance, recovered debt junkie.
Well,
Or
when
recovering.
Well, when people talk about the problems that they've had in the past, it gives other people an opportunity to learn from it.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when I was a kid, I was incredibly stupid. So I started working, earned very little money, and I got this very alluring little Woolworths card,
Yes.
card in the mail. And suddenly, 22 years old, for the first time in my life, can afford to buy anything at Woolworths. And then it just started a cycle for me.
It spiraled out of control at some point, or just
Completely out of control.
What was the experience like? What happened? You just shopped all the time, and you're
So
Yeah?
I would just shop all the time, and my friends and I would joke about it because they would be in the same situation. So it'd be like, oh, I'm in so much trouble this month, and you don't make it to the end of the month without going into debt.
Yes.
And it's terrible. And so by the time I was in my mid to late 20s,
Yeah.
I was like 100,000 Rand in debt,
Yeah.
earning 10,000 Rand a month. And it was really difficult to get out of it.
Yes.
So then the experience started of breaking that awful habit. And it really, I use the phrase debt junkie because it really is like a drug.
Yeah.
You get so dependent on it, and you start using it to make yourself feel better. You get stressed out about your financial situation. Then to make yourself feel better, you go
out and shop again.
Yeah,
for
you buy
shopping therapy once again.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you get addicted to that feeling. And then when the time came to get out of it, it was incredibly difficult. It was a hard process.
But then you decided, I've had enough of this. I'm getting out of it, right?
Right. Well, I met someone who gave me one of those talks.
Yes. But that opened your eyes.
Yes, it did.
Well, I like the fact that not only you'll tell us more about how practically you get out of debt, but you also started a website that I spoke about, justonelap.com.
So I started working for FinWeek magazine.
Yeah.
As a financial journalist, and met through FinWeek the founder of justonelap.com, Simon Brown.
Yeah.
And then when I left FinWeek, I joined up with Simon, and we decided, so he used to do trading education and investment education.
Yes, yes.
And then when I joined, we realized that so many people come to our trading seminars
Yes.
and they want to learn to be a trader.
Yes.
Because it's so alluring, like big money overnight, and it's so sexy, and it's like Hollywood,
Yes.
But people come in and they don't have the basics in place, and that's what I want to kind of chat about. Like, how do you get that financial basis? And then from there you can grow wealth, and you can become a trader, or do glamorous, exciting things.
Yeah, well, start small. Start with the practical, everyday things that can mess up the whole plan of becoming
Exactly.
a successful person. So take us through that then. Let's go through rehab with you.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to start with debt because I think you kind of start in a negative when you are in debt. So we'll cover the debt, and then we'll start from ground level, and then we can build on top of that. So unfortunately, when people ask me how I got out of debt, it was a 2-year process, and a lot of people are like, oh, please, I want to know how you did that.
Yes.
And then when you tell them, they don't really want to hear it because, unfortunately, you have to make a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah,
So,
and over a period of time, right?
Right.
Because we want instant solutions generally. no?
right. So there's a lot of peanut butter having been eaten in that
Yes.
2-month or that
Yes.
2-year period,
yeah.
and 2-minute noodles and
Yes.
cheap food.
Yes.
There's a lot of haircuts not being had, and not new clothing being bought, and not buying presents for your friends, and
Yes.
not going out to dinner. So I think if you're wanting to get out of debt, sitting down and looking at where the money is going. And this is such an important part of financial management, is just writing down where your money goes.
Yes.
It seems like such a silly, simple thing to do, but it's so critically important because money has a tendency to fall through cracks. Right, and you don't realize how much money you spend on, like we always joke about cappuccinos because that's the one little indulgence or biltong or whatever your treat is of your preference, and you don't realize how quickly small expenses like that add up. And the same is true for debt. You think that you're not spending that much because you only bought one pair of shoes and some treats at Woolworths. But then you start writing it down and you realize, oh, I'm paying so much on interest. And you have to kind of figure out which one of your accounts is costing you the most, and how much you're spending on things that you don't need.
So and then you become aware that you're wasting money or you're spending more than you should, and you cut back on those things, right?
Right.
So what do you do when you cut back and get to managing or reducing your debt?
So part of the cutting back experience is actually quite rewarding. I used to go out and shop because it made me feel good. And then when I started cutting back, I started realizing, but cutting back also makes me feel good. Like being able to make it through a month and pay off, like without having used a card, for example.
An achievement thrill of sorts, right?
Yes, that's also, it becomes its own reward. So it takes a while, but you have to kind of rewire your brain to get to that point where if you can make it through a month without using one of your cards, you can identify which one. Maybe it's a store card, maybe it's your credit card. Try to get through a month and try to just not use that one card for that 1 month. And then roll it over the next month and the next month, and you'll see it slowly, gradually becomes its own kind of reward. But you also have to, I think, let your group know, your friends and your family, you have to let them know that you're going through this, because your friends are used to you living a type of lifestyle.
Yes.
And if you suddenly
and
start
going out and whenever
Yes.
you're invited, because you may have to cut back on those things, knowing that you'll have to pay otherwise when you get there.
Exactly, and your friends need to understand and appreciate that. And when the time comes, you can be an inspiration for them and you can help them get out of it, because nobody wants to be in that situation where you get to the end of the month and you're like all nervous because you don't know where the money is going to come from, and you don't have any cash if there's an emergency. So make your group around you aware of it, and then start very, very small.
Now, let's look at it from the frequently asked questions that you receive. What are the typical problems in South Africa, generally speaking, that you think people must try and get out of or understand? You have responses to those questions.
I think a big part, especially for some of the younger people and the traders that we meet, a big part of it has to do with status and the appearance of being wealthy. And that's so dangerous. Something as innocuous as a pair of shoes can be such a dangerous way of thinking about the world. I need to go somewhere and I need to look a certain way. Or I need to say that I'm trading, I have this trading account, or whatever it is, I need to drive a car. So that's something that people struggle with. People struggle with family, like having to provide for family and setting boundaries there. And I can't say no to my family either. So it's a difficult boundary to negotiate.
Because you might be controlling your own personal expenses, but somebody else comes to you all the time for you to look after them, provide them with money that you want to use to settle your debts with.
Exactly, or to start an investment account. And I think it's important to know, of course you want to help your family. I think everybody wants to do that, to be in a position to give some money to their parents or to help a younger sibling through school. But to sit down with your family and to have a frank conversation about what you can and can't afford and what your financial situation is. People don't really like, and I wanted to say people in this country, but I don't think people anywhere like to be frank about their finances. It's hard. It's a difficult conversation to have with your family.
Well, but is there a treat anywhere? I'm thinking, when you go on a diet, for instance, or at all when people go on diets, that now and again you must have a treat. What does it apply in the case of recovering from that?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I think you don't want to be in a situation, because when you go on a diet and you don't allow yourself a treat, then one day something snaps in your brain and you just binge on ice cream the whole day, right? So you want to also avoid that in your debt situation. So my colleague Simon likes to say, when you get a bit of money in, take a third of it and put it towards your debt. Take a third of it and put it away for a rainy day, and then take the other third and buy yourself something fun that you've been wanting to have.
All right, on money that you have left over.
On the money that you have left. So if you take 100 Rand, you split it into 3 equal parts, and you take, some debt, some savings, and then the rest for yourself.
Okay. Well, pleasure to talk to you, Kristia.
Thank you for having me.
And it's just one lap.
Just one lap.com.
.com.
Because you get one chance in life. You just get one chance to go around.
But
So
quick
you
one,
have to
how
have
do you
money
know
while
that
you
you
do
have,
it.
you have now come out of debt now, that you are debt free and you are free? How does it feel like, and what point do you
So
know
you know
that?
what's amazing about paying off debt, and I think this actually gave me an advantage over people who didn't have debt and then started saving and investing, is that I had so much extra cash because all of that cash was going into my cards.
Yeah.
So when I paid off the final card, the next month I'd sat with this wad of money.
That was your money.
That was
now.
my money.
Yeah.
And then, you put that into a savings account for 2 months and you go, this is the most money I've ever had in my life. That's amazing. Such a
took
cool
you years to get to 2 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool feeling. And then you buy your first ETF and you start learning about the stock market, and then it becomes really exciting. But unfortunately, you have to go through that difficult.
Well, that's just a quick rehab for you if you are a debt junkie. And thanks to Kristia for sharing with us. We appreciate.
Thanks for having me.
And of course, you can visit their website, justonelap.com. And they'll take you through the steps of how to recover from debt and manage your expenses. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's how we come to the end of Money Moves, and we hope that you learned something. I did. And of course, we welcome input and feedback from you at Tim Modise, or you can write to us. The address is tonightwithtimmodise@gmail.com.